Hello everyone. Spring has finally sprung in New Zealand. What better time for another Rune Factory game? So this time, Marvellous have gone back to an older game and have remade it for a modern console, the Switch. Rune Factory 3 came out originally for the Nintendo DS. I have the North American edition here, which was published for that region by Natsume in 2010. The original Japanese version came out in 2009 and was published by Marvellous in Japan. And the European edition came out last in 2011 and was published by Rising Star Games. So you can see from this that the publishing history here occurred before the split happened between Natsume and Marvellous. Now, this is a topic that still confuses people, not surprising, and I did cover some of that back history in my very old Rune Factory video. I'll try and put the link up for you in case you're interested. It was a really surprisingly popular video at the time, and it told me how deep the fan base for Rune Factory really was. There is a solid support for Rune Factory, and I think it's finally beginning to bear fruit. Now, Rune Factory games, like all the games leading up to number 4, were developed by Neverland, a company that announced bankruptcy in November 2013, and that's of course when the changes happened. This game was still developed, of course, years before then, and is an old, authentic Rune Factory game. One thing I noticed when talking with people over the last few years about Rune Factory here on the channel is that game number 3 is particularly popular. And I'm not surprised about that. I think it's a really good idea that Marvellous decided to give this game another chance on the modern console. So what makes Rune Factory 3 special? Well, I think the story is an important part. Most farming sim games are those that are based originally on farming. Rune Factory is, of course, a hybrid game incorporating much more than farming. But most of those games tend to be pretty lightweight on the story. It tends to be just a framing device then for the gameplay. And we have a lot of games, they're very popular these days, often coming under the umbrella of cozy games. So the story is one appealing factor. It is a very quirky, entertaining story. The other aspect of Rune Factory 3 is that there is an incredible amount of different activities. There is so much to do. It's just simply a great game to play. The gameplay loop is exactly as it should be. It's come back just for one more run through the dungeon, one more tilling the fields, going out meeting people to build your relationships and maybe find a marriage partner. It's all there and it's well organised. I went back and replayed the opening of Rune Factory 3 last night, and I was actually blown away. So here is the game. Let's start it up. So here's the intro, the title animation. Let's cut to the chase and start the game. So I'll start up a new game to show you the beginning. It's a monster. It looks like you're hurt. I'll take care of you. So this is you dropping into this world, looking at first like a monster. But of course we know, as always, in Rune Factory, you will show up as an amnesiac. And next morning you wake up in human form. You mean you have amnesia? You also meet a Raven, the quiet girl, very early on. And here you see the village for the first time. It's based around the Sharon's tree, and in fact you live in a tree house, which is ultra cool. And on the top you see the village map there. So the DS game came with a wonderful manual in colour, and I'll just show you a few pages from that because it'll explain a lot about the gameplay elements and also show you some of the original graphics. So here we have our amnesiac protagonist, who is called by default Micah in the game. Here's an explanation of the tree house, which is your base where you sleep and save, etc. And the farm, which is at the foot of the tree, and how to go about your farming operations. Now, this is all pretty standard so far. Now, here is the town and the amenities explained, and there is a nice variety there. You can see from the illustrations that a lot of loving detail went into each individual character. And that is something I really like about this older style of game character design, that they really put so much individuality into each person or monster, is something I feel is sometimes nowadays lacking, where a lot of companies opt to go for a more, what I call, generic looking style that often reminds me of mobile games. Now here we get to the exciting bit, the dungeons. They are very important in Rune Factory, and especially in this game. There are 4 different types of dungeons. They're all themed differently according to seasons. And you can also befriend monsters. There's crafting, cooking and fishing, and something called transformation. This is really important for how the whole game works, so I will just read you a little bit, and I'm hoping this will help you in your decision whether you want to play this game. Your early success depends on your ability to master transformation. That means switching from your human form to a beast-like critter. This feature does not become available until a certain point in the game. So after you defeat the raccoon and acquire this ability of transformation, you will be able to craft items in your house and visit the Universe settlement in the desert dungeon. The Universe are a clan of outcasts who detest humans, so transform into woolly form before attempting to make friends. So this is a really neat gameplay mechanic that introduces even more variety. Now, one thing you may have noticed by now is how the dual screen is arranged on the DS game. Let's have another look at that. So here you see the screens with your farm at the bottom, on the bottom screen, and on the top screen, which, as you know, is the proper display screen on the DS and 3DS, you have a map. So all the activity, all the gameplay happens on the bottom screen, because that is the one that has the touch ability. Now, you don't need to use the stylus for various actions. There are button presses available for that, but some people like using the stylus, I guess. But really, I wouldn't call it a necessary feature. We saw a lot of games on the Nintendo DS and also 3DS deciding to use the bottom screen for the main action, and I was never quite happy with that decision because, as you are probably aware, the bottom screen, due to being a touch-enabled screen, is different. It isn't primarily intended for super clear display that is reserved for the top screen. Most of the time you're staring at your characters and the environment on a screen that is not really designed for that purpose and has a fairly low resolution. You get a slightly fuzzy display, pixelated appearance. It's not ideal. So my biggest expectation for this new edition of Rune Factory 3 is around the graphics, I would have to say. I think the gameplay and the controls, they're all solid in the original game, and I don't think it should have caused too much trouble porting that over. And we've seen in Rune Factory 4, the special edition on the Switch, how they managed the integration of the map into the display. So I expect something similar here. But the graphics on Rune Factory 3 really look pretty ancient, I'd have to say. After a while of playing the game last night, I nearly went cross-eyed. I expect they had to do a lot of work to bring that up to a standard as we would expect nowadays for a game. I have deliberately not watched trailers, video coverage, anything like that, promotional material about Rune Factory 3, because I really want to see for myself how it has been transferred, how it comes across to me now. So we'll do the unboxing now, and I will then put in the cartridge and have a look at the initial gameplay. And I will give you my unvarnished first impression straight away. Just a note on the edition itself. I decided to import the North American version, which is called the Golden Memories edition, because I thought it looked nicer than the European version. It would have been a lot easier for me just to buy the European version here locally because it's available here, but I'll just tell you what is in the EU edition. There's the game, an A5 notebook, an A3 poster, stickers, pin badges, and a woven patch. So they call that the limited edition for Europe. I noted that there was no art book and no soundtrack, and that's why I went with this edition. The poster is probably nice. I'm very partial to posters, so that's a plus for the EU edition. But let's have a look now what's in this one and how nice the items are, how well they've done it. Here we are, Golden Memories, because as an amnesiac, memories would obviously be important to regain, and golden because he's a golden woolly. You don't know what a golden woolly is, no. You'll find out if and when you play the game. So here we are, the game. And inside the case you find this little manual booklet, RF3S Special Sharon's Sightseeing Stroll. Welcome to Sharon's My name is Shara. Once you see everything Sharon's has to offer, you may never want to leave. Yes, I share that sentiment. Now, the nice thing about this booklet is that it is very, very similar to the original manual I showed you, right down to the character illustrations. Here's the village map. Here are the dungeons. You can see that they have freshened up the display a bit. They have modernized the presentation. But here's still also the explanation of how farming and crafting work. This is really, really nice. And I expect every standard copy of the game will have this booklet with it. Soundtrack. 36 tracks. Very nicely presented. And I'll use some of the tracks for a bit of background music. Now this book, this notebook you could say, is extraordinary. First of all, a little doodah came floating out the back, and I thought, what's this? And it says it's made from apples, 100% eco-friendly and sustainable. Amazing. Now this is true farming and crafting. Now they describe this on the box as a 192-page, 1-year perpetual planner that also includes detailed in-game calendar. So here's the calendar, an overview of spring, and then, wait for it, you get detailed hints, tips and information for each day. And then there are empty pages where you can keep your own notes. But this is great for people who are not familiar with Rune Factory and who can do with a little bit of guidance going through the weeks of each season. So this is very helpful while also being beautifully presented. And here is the diorama. I'll try and put it together, get it standing up. I have to admit I'm not the greatest fan of acrylic standees. The little slots where they need to fit in are either too loose, so they constantly topple over, or they're too tight and you have problems pushing them in properly. But I managed with this one, and I think the overall result is quite pleasing. If you have played Rune Factory 4, you will most likely recognise this character here with the green hair, the protagonist, Frey or Freya. So that was the unboxing of the Golden Memories edition. I will now go and play the beginning on my Switch. Don't go away, please stick around. Well, put on the kettle and make yourself a nice cup of tea, and when you come back, I'll have my very first impression of the opening of Rune Factory 3 Special. Let's enjoy the opening animation for a bit and then watch about 20 minutes from the opening sequence. A quick look at the options now. There aren't many, it is an old game after all. I cannot control the voice level against the BGM volume. A monster? What are you doing here? Oh my goodness, it is exactly the same as the original game. The graphics, the dialogue, they haven't tinkered with the character design. It's just all been upgraded to sharp, clear HD, and the backgrounds have been very carefully enhanced because those were super fuzzy and low res on the old game. So I'm quite glad that they haven't overdone it. They still look slightly fuzzy and, you know, a bit old, but it's okay, the background just blends in. I'm actually really happy about this. And here we are, our golden woolly monster has transformed into a young man. We get just a little bit of voice acting interspersed. This is how older games worked. I'm fine with that. And I'm sticking with the default name of Micah. You can now set your own birthday, and that's really convenient. In the older games, the game relied on the system data on your Nintendo DS or 3DS and just picked the birthday that was entered there. Considering that he is also a sheep at times, yes, lamb chops, anyone? You get a good early impression of the silent girl who's called Raven here. She's always pouting, glowering a bit, rather like a recalcitrant teenager. And here you see the map popping up for the very first time in the bottom left corner, and we also finally get control of Micah. I have to tell you how happy I am that this is basically the old Rune Factory 3. They have simply spruced up the visuals a bit, and there are a few other very small improvements that I will point out as we go.
Oh dear.
Isn't Raven grumpy? It'll take some doing to win her over, I reckon. These explanations are pretty much the same in every Rune Factory game, just a basic feature, so I'll accelerate a bit. But here is something interesting. The dialogue text has been changed from the original, which was much more mundane. This was the first indication I got that they have actually looked closely at the text and have slightly updated it in a few places. I think to emphasize the air and nature of the game even further, which to me is incredibly funny. At times characters seem a bit over the top almost. It's just a lot of good-natured, irreverent humour. There is a very subtle change here that I find really intriguing. I'm pretty sure in the original game, Shara said, looking forward to many presents, which sounded, I thought, just slightly on the greedy side and a bit out of character for Shara. So it looks to me like they amended that. Now we're finally getting to the core activities of the game.
Thank you. Wonderful.
This game is serious about throwing you straight into the action within the first 10 minutes. I love that sort of pace.
You okay? Yeah. Don't think so. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. No problem.
So here comes the farming tutorial, which many of you will be familiar with, so I'll speed through that as well. I just want to mention that I thought the controls, the assignment of buttons, is well done in this game. It's very straightforward. I can think of some other farming games where I thought the controls were far clunkier and more awkward. So I'm absolutely perfectly happy with this. I just want to point out here how I think they've actually done the interface better than in the remake of Rune Factory 4, where I thought the map implementation was just slightly awkward and intrusive. They've kept everything to a minimum here, so you've got a fairly uncluttered screen to work on. You can just pop up the map and it's not in the way. So again, it all just works really well in my opinion. So here, Micah's new life begins, and we have to think about what work to start with in earnest. First, we need to visit the town itself, and Shara will give us our first task, which is to meet all the villagers. That's quite a job because there are many of them. I want to show you just a few clips of the characters you meet because they are so varied and entertaining, and just to give you a flavour. In typical Rune Factory fashion, you will level up your skills automatically. In this case, it's the skill of walking.
Welcome. Let's... Huh?
Monica, how many times have I told you no horsing around in the shop? Shara, do stop!
Monica, stop that, please. Beat him up! Let me go! Sorry. My little sister doesn't keep your distance from talking to her. Ship me lots of crops, save up your gold, then come buy some more.
Here is a funny little scene in the general store. You'll meet the mother and the teenage daughter running the shop.
Closed. Karina! Honestly,
I'm always keeping an eye on it. Don't worry.
what?
Some would say my frankness is my best feature. Huh? What a pain.
Don't think for an instant you can pull a fast one on me.
And here you meet the famous artist Daria in her atelier.
assistance. 100 should do to start. If any candidates would be kind enough to just slide through my door.
There are save points at the entrance to every dungeon. Nice. This is the big mansion. You will meet the eccentric residents.
Disgusting! Oh.
Alright. Just give me a minute. Lewis has outdone himself again. Alright. Just give me a moment. Good night, Papa.
A terrible morning to you.
I hate you too, Papa.
Oh?
That's wrong. I find myself in good spirits today, so I'm going for a stroll. No!
I don't mean it.
I'll be off then. Oh, goodness.
I took an instant liking to Marjorie. I'm just a simple old lady myself. Here is another example of livened up dialogue. And now Micah has to deal with the prickly raven.
Are you here to buy something, right? Huh? This is a weapon shop. If you're not here to buy, sorry.
As long as I've got some iron to hammer at, I don't have a care in the world.
Huh? What?
I found Raven's room upstairs, and see what I discovered. Her diary. A suspicious man arrived in town. He claims to have amnesia, which makes him even more suspicious. Well, at least we have an insight now into what is bothering Raven.
Just one little dagger.
That's enough, Marion.
I find this whole pharmacy setup just hilarious. The only small hiccup I experienced is that when you meet people out and about in town and talk to them, they might not always remember exactly that they've already met you before in their shop, and vice versa, but it's not hugely distracting. I found in my short gameplay time that the conversation changes over time quite regularly, so that's a big plus in my book. This is the last meeting scene I'll show you. I'm pretty sure you've got a good impression by now of the atmosphere of the game.
Welcome! You here for a bath? Good news, because we have...
Huh?
Here!
about her. Huh? Really? Do we have a deal?
Huh? That's enough, you two.
Woohoo! I've upskilled my hoeing, and I think I will now plant a very special item. Yes, the magic seed. Isn't that splendid? I'm off exploring more. Let me know if you're thinking of picking up this game. As always, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.